to introduce Honorable Eileen Nadelson. So Judge Nadelson is here to speak with us. I really appreciate that you're here, Judge, sharing your time. And I know you've been sharing your time and you're very concerned about democracy. So I know you're going to share your expertise. I'm just going to talk about you very briefly. I know that you were admitted to practice in several New York districts and in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. I know that you were an arbitrator at state courts and the American Arbitration Association. I know that you served as judge for many years. I know you have presented legal seminars to the bar. I know that you have presided in every borough of New York City. And I know you've also offered public support on court procedure and consumer merchant disputes. And I know you were a judicial hearing officer, mediation, arbitration panels. I think you've done just about almost everything that I know around the realm of law. And so I really appreciate you being here. And I know you're going to talk about the Constitution. So everybody, I hope you enjoy Judge Eileen Nadelson. Judge, you are on.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh. Okay, I'm going to go right into the subject matter because it's an important one and I have a lot to say about it. And I think it might help to empower us who are listening to this, and maybe take some proactive conduct in the regard that I would like you to do. So let's go right into it. You're looking at the excerpt, a small blurb of the parchment Constitution, and in the bold print. I don't know if you can see my cursor moving. Do you see my cursor moving? I'm moving my cursor over it, but I don't know if the
no.
No, okay. You see "We the People," and then underneath that you will see a bold print, which is what we term as the preamble to our Constitution. This is the actual Constitution, the parchment that it's on. And I want to start with telling you that we are the only nation on the planet that has an original Constitution. I know that sounds, everybody has a Constitution, so I have to explain that. Every other state or every other nation, except us, we're the only ones, the Constitution or the list of human rights comes down from the monarch. It was given to the British from the monarch. It was given to the French from the monarch. It comes down from, and the reason for that was because people were revolutionizing in the days of 15, 16, 1700s. They wanted more freedom. Who doesn't want more freedom? And so the monarch was trying to pacify them, and they all gave them these human rights listings, but it came down from the top. We are the only nation on the planet that did an original Constitution, which comes up from the people. We the people. All right, this is important, and I'll tell you why. Let me read what the preamble says about, this is the beginning of our Constitution, and right after it, it goes right into Article 1. So it's a very short introduction. Let me read to you what it says on that. So if those of you know it, or those of you forgot it, or those of you who don't know it, this is what it says. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. That's what that, we the people, and the print underneath it, the bold print on it. Then it goes right into Article 1. Now we are 3 chambers. I assert that most people, and I don't know who's, I know a lot of us are lawyers, but I assert even the lawyers don't know the Constitution. I really appreciate and study and want to know the Constitution. I was taught I was one of the last probably generations that was taught the Constitution in school. I knew the Constitution in the 4th grade. It went right through high school. So I really know how the government works. We don't do that anymore. They don't teach Constitution in our schools anymore. How can you not know the structure of your government as a citizen of a country? Nobody in this country knows anything in the Constitution. I know I'm getting agitated. Calm me down, Josh. Okay, so we have three branches of government. It was designed for three branches of government so that one could overlook or monitor the other. Neither one can tell the other what to do. So the first branch of government is the Congress. And this is what it says. This is Article 1. It establishes the Congress. This is what it says, Introduction to the Congress. All right. Article 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States. And then it says it consists of the Senate and the House of Representatives. All legislative powers, not some, not a few, not partial, all legislative powers come from the Congress. Nobody else makes the regulations of this country. Nobody else except the Congress. Wow. Some of you know that? I don't think so. Some people actually think the president does. No, it's only the Congress. And we, the people, the way it's designed in our Constitution, are the ones that select the representatives for the Congress. We, the people, are the ones who set up the Congress. And it goes into the Article 1, by the way, is about the Congress, is all about, it's very intricate, it's long, it's the longest one of them all for the chamber, for one of the chambers of our government. It's because they set out how we elect them, what the percentages are, the way it's done, who does what. I'm not going into any of that stuff. And you don't need to know all that stuff. Just know that we, the people, are the ones that select the representatives and the senators of the Congress. Get that. That's important. So it's you or nobody, folks. It's nobody else doing the Congress, except if you don't like something Congress is doing, we tell them what to do. They don't tell us what to do. You guys have it backwards. We're the boss. We tell our representatives what to do. Everybody out there thinks, gee, I wonder why isn't the Congress doing this? Why doesn't the Congress pass these laws? Well, because they're not. Nobody's telling them to do that. They may or may not do it on their own. You know, some of them are really do-gooders and conscientious. But let's face it, we're the boss. You run the operation. It's my company. I tell you how to work. You don't tell me how to work. My company. Okay? So this is the Congress. We, the people, set the Congress up. If you don't get involved in your laws, then don't come to me complaining about you don't get anything done. It's you or nobody. All right, let's go to the next chamber. Next chamber of the Constitution is there's the executive office. And this is the one that's giving us trouble, all right? Because it's the one that's the most vague. I'll explain that. It's the vaguest one of the chambers. And here's what it says as the introduction to Article 2, which is the executive office. The executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. And then it talks about it, the terms. Now it's 2 terms, we know, and he has a vice president. It's a very short paragraph. I'm giving you the important stuff, all right? But this is what he's allowed to do. He is allowed to be, he's the commander in chief during wartime. During wartime only. He's not the commander in chief every day of the year. Only when we're at war, he's the commander in chief. He does not have to go to the Congress to do anything then. He's talking to the generals. All right, he's actually in conference with generals about where we're going, what we're doing. He also appoints judges. We know that because we see what goes on when they're appointed through the Congress. He can make treaties, but this is also with the Congress. You can't do it without the senators. That's part of the Congress. He cannot make treaties on his own. That's with the Congress. He can grant pardons without the Congress. We know he can do that because we've seen that happen where they grant pardons for who knows who. And this is the one that's giving us trouble. All right, down here at the bottom, they're referring to a female there, which is interesting. The last one says, her duty, take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Okay, this is the one that's giving us trouble. This is the laws of the Congress, not the president's laws, the laws of the Congress. Now, the president has a cabinet. You know, he has different agencies, education and military and environment and, you know, whatever, and internal affairs. He has cabinet members. he's the CEO of that cabinet. All right, he's the one that they have to report to. And he tells them, look, you guys, I'm going to make you commissioner. He appoints his commissioners, and that's under his own, he does it himself. So you take it or leave it, whatever he puts in as a cabinet commissioner, you're stuck with that. All right. But this is the agencies, this cabinet of the agencies. The agencies then have to execute, they make sure that the laws of the Congress have to be faithfully executed. So the agency says to Indiana or New Jersey, agency of education, this is what you have to do in the state. They execute the laws in the states because it goes to the states. From Congress, it goes to the states. So they're the ones that oversee that it's happening in the states. Now, let's say one of the states doesn't want to follow the laws. Okay, this is what happens a lot, especially now. I'm going to make this up. Let's say Indiana, the law of internal affairs says you have to have a tree in every corner. That's what Congress made in the law for the environmental committee. You have to have a tree in every corner. Indiana doesn't like trees, or they just don't like trees. They're not putting any trees on this corner. They refuse to put a tree on the corner. Now, the commissioner of the environmental committee or the cabinet has to talk to Indiana. They usually go through the governor or that somebody who's overseeing the agency in Indiana. Okay, they say, listen, you guys, Congress says the law is you have to have a tree in every corner, and you guys aren't doing that. What's the story here? They say we don't like trees. Screw you. We're not putting any trees here. What is the option for the public? You have to petition. What the petition is really, you sue the government. The public has the right to petition the government. So somebody has to bring a case, which we're doing now. You have to bring a case against the government because they're not doing their job according to the Constitution, which is the laws of the Congress. Okay, am I bringing this forward? Congress. They're the laws. And that's you, the people, who put in the representatives who made the laws. You, the public, are overseeing the person that you put in office in the Congress. You're the boss. So they're not doing it the way you want it. So you have to tell them to do it that way. If not, you have to petition them, or better known as sue them for it. And now it comes up the ladder to the judiciary, which, well, don't go yet, but that's the third chamber. When it gets to the judiciary, did you know, everybody says, why is the Supreme Court doing something about that? That's illegal. They're supposed to. Why aren't the judges doing it? Because they're not allowed to do it. The Supreme Court can only review the law as far as its constitutionality, which means it has to be on their desk. It has to be a case. It has to be an issue. It has to be something already petitioned by the public. They have to review the case. They cannot act on their own to stop something. That's not their job. They're not allowed to do that by the Constitution. They're not allowed to step into somebody else's foot. That's not, they're supposed to mind their own business. Their business is you have to rule on the constitutionality. So when it gets to the Supreme, they will say, okay, Indiana, they're either following the law, so it's constitutional, or they're not following the law. What they're doing is unconstitutional. And surprisingly, it could be constitutional. There might be a reason, you guys, you have to read the case. I read the case of the Supreme Court people. You have to read the case because you don't know what the underlying rationale is. It could be that the trees are infected. It could be that the trees are blocking traffic. It could be that the trees the public doesn't like the trees in Indiana. It has to be some kind of reasonable excuse for not following it. If it's reasonable and it's plausible, the Supreme Court may say, yeah, Congress passed that law, but there's an exception here because it doesn't apply. It's not applying the way it's written. Therefore, it is not unconstitutional. It just needs to be tweaked. What happens after that is that you have to go back to the Congress, and they have to tweak the law. It doesn't change automatically. Nobody changes the law except Congress. They're the only legislative power under our system of government. So you have to go back to Congress. It's always got back to Congress. So there could be a reason why it's considered constitutional. Maybe the Supreme Court made a mistake. I'm not saying they're always right. So maybe they are reason deciding wrongfully, then you have to do something about Congress. If the Supreme Court does something that you don't like because you think it's not done properly, guess who you have to go to, folks? Yes, it's the Congress. Congress can make another law which will tweak that law. It has nothing to do with the law that the Supreme Court ruled on. It is now tweaked, and it's another law. It has now have some other words in it, which means it is no longer part of the law that was considered constitutional under the Supreme Court. That is going to have to go through the same process again, through the cabinet, to the states, to the petition of the people, to the judiciary. It's a very long process, but it is the way it was designed, because the people in 1700s, remember this is after the revolution, in the 1770s, they made sure nobody would ever take over the government again as the way it was under the monarch. A monarch takes over the government. A dictator takes over the government. The people of the 1770s were very, very concerned about that. And very, you might say, we were lucky, because we had people who knew that they were not going to allow this. So they made it very, 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 very difficult for the government to get by them. And that takes time, folks. It doesn't happen with a snap of a finger. I'm sorry to report that. But you should be grateful that it takes time, that some dictator is not going to be able to step in overnight. All right? So now that takes care of, I think I've done enough on Article 2, which is, oh wait, executive orders. I forgot. The executive orders is what's happening now. The executive office is making its own laws. So now, yes, it can't come before the Supreme Court yet, and not until it's been challenged by petition, by suing. So those things are in effect. If you don't do something about it, it's going to stay in effect. Some people are challenging it, some people aren't. All right. If you don't take steps to challenge what's being done by your executive office, then you're stuck with it. And he's not the first one to do it. It has happened many, many, many times before him. Presidents come into power and they say, I was elected because the public wants, let's say the public wants extra medical coverage. I'm just making this up again. But the public elected me because they want more medical coverage. So the only thing the president can do is suggest to the Congress, I was elected under that platform. I would like you to make a law for this because the people are waiting for that. That's why I was elected as the presidency. I want you to address this. Can he force the Congress to do that? No, only the public can. But the president can suggest very, very strongly that, I suggest you do this because I was elected under that rule. They're not going to be happy if you don't address it. That's the only thing he could do. He cannot make his own rules, which is something that's happening today. And everybody says, well, what are we doing about that? Well, guess who has to do something about that? Start looking in the mirror, folks. It ain't happening without you. We, the people, you're the only ones who could do something about that. Nobody else. The Congress cannot tell the president what to do. The judiciary cannot tell the president what to do. And the president cannot tell the judiciary what to do. The president cannot tell the Congress what to do. Nobody is allowed to tell anybody to do under our system of government. That's how carefully it was constructed. Let's go to Article 3. Article 3 is the judiciary. Okay, this needs a little tweaking on my side. This is not accurate the way we got this slide, but it wasn't accurate. I noticed it later. The judiciary does not review the president's actions. All right, scratch that. That was written by somebody who would like it to be like that. They do not review the president's actions. They're not allowed to do that. They only review the constitutionality of Congress's rules or Congress's regulations. So this is like putting ahead, like if you don't like what the president's doing, he's doing something, they can't do anything about that, all right, until it's on before their desk as a rule, as a case. But this is an example of they're talking about the executive orders. So everybody's thinking, well, the Supreme Court, if they could review this, why aren't they redoing this? This is inaccurate. Don't go by this. The only thing the judiciary can do, only thing that they could do is when you bring a case, it comes up the roll of the judicial system and they can rule on its constitutionality. That's all that they do. Nothing else. Do not expect your Supreme Court justices to be standing on the street corner directing traffic. They do not enforce the law. They only review the law. And neither can the executive office. You know, now he's going into Washington, D.C., and he's taking over the police department. Have you seen that lately? Have you people seen that? He's now walking in, taking over. The president cannot do that unless it's an emergency. Now, if Indiana was attacking New Jersey and the police department was not doing anything about it and the public was in danger, the president can actually take charge. That's a danger to the public. He's allowed to do that under extreme conditions. It's usually war or some kind of insurrection in the state that he can do. I don't see any insurrection happening in Washington, D.C. I don't see any insurrection happening anywhere. So there's another thing, disasters. The president could take charge in that because now you have the people in trouble. The people are actually in danger. The president can make decisions at that point. Yes, send the militia or not, send the military in to help with that. Let them do this with the Red Cross. Let them show up and help. That he can do because the people are in trouble. That's an emergency situation when you have a natural disaster. That he can do. So those things do happen when the president, but this has been going on with presidents who think that, well, I'm in office now. I don't want to wait until the Congress gets around to this. That's going to take time. You know, I'm just going to do my own thing. And that's what's been happening, is that they've been doing their own thing and nobody thinks it's improper. He's not allowed to do his own thing. Wake up, America. The executive office does not pass any rules unless it's an emergency. So you got to know your Constitution. And I don't mean you have to know it in detail. All right. You don't have to know it in detail, but you do have to know what your chambers are allowed to do. There's 3 chambers. You got to know what each one's allowed to do. Okay. So now let me get into the last part, which is the Bill of Rights. Now, what happened with the Constitution is that it was done in 1787. They actually did the Constitution and they set it up with the 3 chambers and all of that stuff that I'm telling you about. But they had to have 9, there's 13 colonies, and they had to have 9 to ratify it. And they couldn't get 9 to ratify it. And you know why? Because the public was still afraid of the government. They really were afraid of government. Those people did not want a monarchy. We should be that afraid of government. They were really afraid. They just finished the revolution. They're not letting this happen again. So they said, we're not signing off on this Constitution unless you give us a listing of everything of our rights that's protected. The government can never, ever do anything against us under those rights. We want a listing of those rights. And so the forefathers got together, or whoever was still working on the Constitution, and they said, okay, we will put together your rights, okay? And that's how the Bill of Rights came to be. This was in 1791, it took 4 years. So in the first one is the one we know the best. The first one is, they show 3 here. If you look on the slide, it shows speech, religion, and press. Actually, there's 5. There's freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom of petition. The freedom of petition I already mentioned. That's when you sue the government, when you don't like something. Press means you can have a free press. It could say whatever it wants as long as it's not wrongful or not factual. But the press should say whatever is a fact. They cannot be squelched or muzzled. You can go to whatever religion you want, and you could speak whatever you want. All right. That was the most important one. That was First Amendment. So they got that. That was it. Freedom of assembly, by the way, some people think freedom of assembly is partly discriminatory. It is not discriminatory. I can say, I'm making this up again. Let's say the Asian group, there's an Asian group. They don't want anybody in the group except Asians. It's a little narrow-minded, but that's freedom of assembly. They can decide they only want people of Asian descent. They're allowed to make that assembly. Now, the only time it becomes discrimination, and you come along and you're an Indian or you're a Caucasian, and they say, I'm sorry, we don't want you in our group. We only like Asians. You say that's discriminatory. It is not discriminatory. It's only discriminatory if they keep you from getting your rights. You're not allowed to find a job. They stop you from getting housing. They get in the way of, what your rights are personally. That's discrimination. But as long as you don't interfere with that person, you just say, no, I don't want you in my group, that is not discriminatory. Suck it up, folks. They're allowed freedom of assembly. You may not be invited to their barbecue. You're not going to their barbecue. Okay? That's freedom of assembly. Now, Second Amendment, let me see if I can get this in before my time is up. This is the Second Amendment in 1791, or is it 1791? Everybody had a gun. Everybody had a gun in 1790. They just finished the revolution, for Pete's sake. They were shooting, they were having duels on the mound. You remember that? You know, Aaron Burr was shooting. They already had guns. There was no restriction on guns. All right. What the public wanted, the people who were afraid of government, do you remember they're afraid of government? After they finished the revolution, they said, well, what if in the future, in the next 50 years or so, my grandchildren, somebody decides to he wants to be a dictator. We need protection. We need to have some kind of protection so that we could galvanize ourselves and, come together as a militia to fight off this dictator and to protect ourselves, to keep our rights. That's what the Second Amendment was for. It was not to give you a gun. It was, and that's why militia is in that amendment. It has the word militia in there. It was so that people would have arms under the militia to fight off any dictator or anybody who took power over them. They were trying to protect themselves from government taking them over. That's why they wanted the right to bear arms. That's how that came about. We tweaked it over the years. Now it suddenly became, well, I'm supposed to. We didn't give you the right to have guns to gun down your neighbor. You're right. You do not have the right to bear arms to kill your neighbor. That's not what the Second Amendment was for. Okay, so you got to get past that. It's all a matter of keeping government from infringing upon you. And of course, the other important one was Fourth Amendment, where you cannot come into someone's house. Cannot unreasonable search and seizure. That used to happen when under the monarchy. They would just come in and do whatever they wanted. They take your belongings. I mean, dictators do that, So the people again said, we don't want anybody from the government ever coming into our house. This is sacrosanct. So they made the law, the Fourth Amendment, you can never go into anybody's house without their permission. And you can if you're chasing a criminal. If you're chasing a criminal and he runs into your house, you could chase him into his house. But let's say you're chasing a criminal, he eludes you, you lose him, you don't know where he is. 3 hours later or 4 hours later, you find out he went home. You cannot enter his house. At that point, you are not allowed to go into that house. Now you get a warrant, I guess.
Excuse me, Judge.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe you can start wrapping.
Okay. So I'm telling you, this was the Bill of Rights. Now, both of them together, the Constitution was already written in 1787, but both of them that got ratified, that's why it's considered together as two separate documents. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights were both ratified in 1791. They come together. But you need to know your Constitution, because that's actually the Constitution. This is all the rights that you have, the beginning rights that are crucial to keeping the government out of your backyard. And that pretty much sums it up. Now you should know what the whole situation with the Constitution is. Thank you for that. Thank you for listening. We're done.
I love it. Judge, you're so passionate and you know the law so well. I love it. I want you in my corner, okay?
Okay.
Please. I just want to talk about the next call really quick, but I also want to say to anybody on this call, if you like what we're doing here.
Do you have a question maybe? Is there any question?
Yeah, give me one moment, please, Judge. And so if anybody likes what we're doing here, if anybody wants to get involved in our organization, we're in dire need of leadership and we're in dire need of people just to help out so we can spread the word, get more outreach, educate more people, and get more people involved and more people on our side. So please reach out. You can get us to our website. You can raise your hand now. And I'm going to mention next week's speaker, Judge, and then I'm going to take questions. So next week we have a gentleman named Robin Piguero. He's running for Congress in South Florida. Robin is a very interesting guy. He was part of the January 6th hearings and trials. And so investigative counsel, he's an attorney. And he ended up doing a tremendous amount of work. He's going to talk about the January 6th trials. He's a graduate of Harvard Law School. He's a writer. And he's worked for several senators and congressmen. So he's a really interesting guy. I hope you join us next week. Please come. Please invite anybody you'd like to invite and just come back and see us. And like I said, if you'd like to get a little more involved with us, I would very much appreciate that. Please reach out. Does anybody have any questions for the judge? We're a little over time, so it's fine. But anybody? I
I,
think it was,
I
go ahead. Go ahead,
yeah,
Bobby.
I just wanted to say, Judge, that was an amazing presentation, and I think you did a really good job at just explaining the core of our government and how it functions. And what I see, and I think you mentioned this in your presentation, is that our current administration is not following the Constitution. They're eliminating agencies that were started by Congress, like what they're, gutting the Department of Education that was formed by Congress. So that's unconstitutional. So, what can we as Americans do in response to what's happening right now?
It's all speaking up. It's your mouth does the trick. People just have to speak up. They either get too busy or they forget or they're afraid. Some people are afraid, but it's really just speaking up. So you have to find out who your congressperson is, and you have to say, this is outside the Constitution. And you can phrase that. You can say, I want you to do your job. I'm your constituent and I want you to do your job. And I know this comes out of Congress, and the president is not allowed to do that under our Constitution. So I want you to speak up about that. Or else you can just find another way to do it through organizations like this, maybe a way to like write letters or whichever way we're doing it this way to get involved with each other. But it doesn't take a lot. You're not going to get a critical mass. You're not going to get 50% of the public doing this, but you can get 10%, you can get 12%, you can get, if you're lucky, get 20%. Believe it or not, even though it's less than a majority, you would be amazed how that is an impact on your congressperson. I have seen this happen. I know, coming from my experience, that it doesn't take a lot of people to switch them, but it does take sound. It does take sound. If you don't speak up and say something about it, they will not do it. They just don't, because they know that they don't have to accommodate you. But they do know that they have to accommodate you when you say, you have to accommodate me. I'm the person who, I'm your constituent. Pay attention. This is what I want.
Yeah, they're declining. They're declining to take the town halls now because they see what's happening to the two other lawmakers. People get angry. They say, "You work for me," and they do nothing.
Yeah, well, when you say that happens, do you mean the congressmen are doing that?
Well, we see it. We see videos though. They attack the congressman. They attack the senator.
Well, you can't attack them. Don't attack them. That's not.
Well, yeah. You work for me.
I would use different language.
Yeah. Okay.
You work for me. You got to know how to talk to people. Communication is key.
Okay.
So if you insult somebody, they're not coming around. They think you're a wacko. They disregard you. So you have to talk to them like, I'm your constituent. This is what's happening for the education. This is what's happening for the environment. Whatever you don't like. This is what's going on. I know under the Constitution that it's a congressional law. The executive office is not allowed to do anything about this. So I want you speaking up about this without coming out and saying, I'm your boss, which you are the boss. But it's better not to say that. If you want somebody to do something for you, you don't come on that strongly. You have to know how to communicate. So yeah, it's all in the language. Everything's in the language.
Got it.
But
You know,
talking to your congressman it works. I'm telling you, it works. I've seen it.
Speaking of language, Judge, I just want to share with you, there's a lot of comments here. I know you're not seeing them. Thank you, Judge. That was wonderful. Thank you, Judge. Your passion's appreciated. The judge was phenomenal. Thank you, Judge.
That's
There's
great.
a lot
Thank
of
you.
comments here.
Okay. Yeah, well, now you have to speak up. Don't just sit down and say, gee, that was a nice presentation. I think I'll go watch television. That is like do whatever little it is. You don't have to do a lot. I'm not asking you to put your neck out under the guillotine, but something, do something, speak up, say something. And it could be a minor thing, and say it politely and intelligently without being mean-spirited, because language is everything. Language is everything. Yeah. So
All right, I'm going to do it. So listen, Judge, you were awesome. You've got a ton of good feedback on the comments. Thank you so much for your time. And please, everybody, come back next week and think about joining us and actually joining our inner circle here. If you have some time in your life, we could definitely use your support. But thank you all for being on the call, especially you, Judge. You, I need you to stay in my life, okay?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm on your side, Josh.
I'm on your side too. You know, you need to keep in touch with me about your other things. So, all right, everybody.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Judge.
Thanks,
Good
everybody.
night. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Right.
Good night, everybody. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rebecca.
Bye.
Thank you.